All right. Check one, check two, not one, but two. Wake Awards. I'm so stoked. It's pretty freaking crazy. Got best video short, best content creator for 2020. What the heck? Yeah, dive in and let's check some stuff out. First off, we have Delta, There's No Place Like Home, filmed by Spencer Norris. That was one of the coolest trips that we've been on. It was on the Delta, which is like the home stomping grounds, but we ended up renting a house so we could just be on the water and ready to go. JD Webb came down, Josh Welker, myself, Hayden Berg, and we just set out to do better. Set out to better our own selves, our own riding, you know, try to throw maybe a little flair of new style, maybe up our, tech riding a little bit and just kind of come out with something that's special to us. And I think we did that. I think the way that Spencer edited that whole film, we set out on a couple adventures. I think it just all came together and it was something that I know all the boys and I are super stoked on. So that was rad. Leading right after that was my wife was pregnant and we were going into the off season. I just really wanted to do one more trip that was kind of like, far away for us, and picked the Philippines. It was Graham Burres, Nicholas Leduc, JB O'Neill, and myself, and we all just set out to go there and have fun. It was more just like, let's go enjoy ourselves and just let the pieces fall where they lie. And Dave AV went out there. And if you haven't flown or shot with Dave AV, you're missing out. He is one of the most all-time sickest filmers. And yeah, I was pretty happy with the footage that we got. It wasn't like the craziest pushing the limits video, but it ended up being a cool piece for me, at least in my career, saying that I went to the CWC. I got to experience it. What a culture it is there, and got to spend it with some of the best of my friends. All in all, CWC, the Phillies trip was like one of the top trips. So after the Phillies, I came home, wanted to go ride a couple more times and over the winter. And come January 15th, took a set and ended up breaking my tibia plateau. Kind of put me on my butt for a little bit, and that's kind of where you switch from your physical abilities to more of like a mental state. And so I tried to really dive deep into my creative side, and ended up coming up with pre-pandemic. I typically try to film the year before and just stockpile a bunch of footage, and that's what I did. I also grabbed some from the Delta edit and grabbed some from CWC edit, and ended up just compiling all my favorite stuff through the whole entire season. And once the pandemic happened and everything was just shut down, I was also broken, and it was a perfect time for me to just sit down at the computer and edit something that I was extremely excited about. Showed it to a couple of my buddies, and they were like, wow, this is really cool. Not really thinking that like months later it was going to win one of these awards, and yeah, that's wild. It's super rad. So yeah, man, pre-pandemic was off the charts cool. I always try to better myself when it comes to editing. Sometimes it's hard because it's all creativity, and sometimes you're not as creative as you want to be or whatever, but the specific edit, everything just ended up lining up. I had great trips with great friends, great footage that other guys shot of me, and was able to put together something that is one of my best edits for myself. So couldn't have done it without all the guys that film, my whole crew. Like we don't really necessarily put each other on a pedestal and one is better than the other. We all try to work together and create content for each other, and I think that's what we did here, and I can't thank you boys enough. Yeah, so anyway, so like after pre-pandemic, I was finally getting a little better, and my baby boy was born, which is insane. He's 10 months old right now, Slater. He's a young little whippersnapper, but Yeah, man, right after coming out of that into spring was the 2021 Hyperlite shoot. It was going to be my first ride on a big wake since my injury, and set 1, ear-to-ear grin, super stoked on how everything was going. Set number 2, shooting with rod, got a little looped out in the air and ended up crunching my ankle super bad. I had to ride the rest of that shoot on an absolutely destroyed ankle. It was pretty painful, but was able to get a couple things I was like happy about enough. So that was pretty rad. But then, yeah, a little bit later, Lacy Hard Drives hit me up, wanted to do something unique, like a little commercial. And I gathered up the boys. We took out on a winch trip, and we wanted to do something special for a company that's not necessarily in the wakeboarding industry. And with a hard drive, obviously we use it to film, but it's not an actual piece of equipment that we use in wakeboarding. So how do we incorporate that? Well, this exact hard drive was like waterproof and all that stuff, and so we set out to try to be as destructive as possible, and we thought that winching was the best way to do it. And yeah, I was pretty stoked on the way that that commercial came out. It was Josh Dwelker, Hayden Berg, myself, and yeah, I was stoked on it. And then yeah, throughout the rest of the year, was just putting out as much social media content as possible, filming everybody, giving them their stuff, and yeah. So going into the very end of the year was Space Tapes. Dun dun dun. It was like Space Tapes was announced, and it seemed to me like the parameters of Space Tapes were close to what the X Games real wake was like. You know, you had a certain amount of time, that you had a certain amount of time in the video, and yeah, so it was like, okay, I know what this is like, I know how hard this is, and we gathered up the boys again and took off. It was Keaton, myself, Haydenberg, Josh Twelker, Mike Bells, and the goal was to pretty much just lay it all out there and leave nothing at home. We spent a lot of time on the water, spent tons of time behind the MB boat, tons of time winching, winch trips, Reno, you name it, we were there. We were filming pretty much the last day, and came out with the best edit and 3rd overall, so super pumped on that too. And yeah, just absolutely tripping out. Yeah, so like I'm just like tripping. This year was just crazy. And we topped it off with an MB shoot that Randall Harris came to, and he rode, and he just, man, if you haven't seen Randall ride before, you see him in person and you're like, holy crap. So that was a super special one. Shooting out there with the MB boats, MB team. The year 2020, I couldn't be more stoked with it, man. Like, yeah, there was like some definite trials and tribulations with the old pandemic. You know, some things sucked more than others, but when you look back on it, you're trying to focus on all the positives. I got a baby boy that was born. Got some awards that I never thought I'd get. Had a great time wakeboarding. Got a lot of time with family, and yeah, man, couldn't be more stoked. 2021 is gonna be better than 2020, and 2020 was a heck of a whirlwind. So let's go.